to ICICIdirect. Joining us now is a special guest, Atul Lall, MD of Dixon Technologies. The run-up to the budget is usually an exciting time, both in terms of expectations and wrecked nerves. The latter more so in the past 2 years, given the pandemic bringing economic activity to a screeching halt in 2020. But if numbers give comfort, India's GDP growth is set to be world-beating, and estimates for tax collection predict a 4-year bump. But at the same time, upcoming elections, fiscal consolidation, and boosting growth are some of the areas that will be grabbing attention too. Atul, thanks a ton for joining us today. In less than 24 hours, the finance minister will be presenting the union budget. What do you think? Could this budget be focused more on populist measures, especially ahead of elections, or would it be a growth-focused one?
Thank you, Samina. Thank you for calling me here. So I think, one, there are many positives, particularly for our sector, that's electronics manufacturing. And very prudently, the government has taken policy initiatives of PLI or specs, announcing the semiconductor policy. They've been rolled out, and now what is to be done is the seamless execution, both from the industry side and the government side. Because undoubtedly for electronics manufacturing industry, it's some kind of a Y2K moment, it's an inflection point. However, there are also various challenges. Challenges in short to medium term. There are significant inflationary headwinds. Mm-hmm. We know that Fed is going to be raising rates at least 3 to 4 times this year. Interest rates would be going up. So I feel that there would be some budgetary measures to take care of these kind of headwinds. And I feel that some interest rates or normalization, even in India, is expected soon. So I think what is critical on the macroeconomic front in our country is to give a significant boost to demand generation and also huge impetus for job creating industry. What we require for the Indian masses is more and more jobs. So I think more impetus, more initiatives would be given to the manufacturing industry, particularly in the areas which is labor intensive. So I look forward to those policy initiatives and announcements in the forthcoming budget tomorrow.
Atul, like you indicated, I think consumption is the critical mass here, right? More disposable income has to be given in the hands of consumers to increase spending, in turn to increase manufacturing, create jobs. Any sort of boost coming in to sort of spur up consumption?
So undoubtedly, I think that's going to be the critical part. When we're looking at that kind of GDP growth, consumption is the most important element. We don't want it to be a K type of recovery. We want it to be a uniform recovery. We want it to be an equitable recovery. And I think the government and the finance minister would be well seized of this matter. And the initiatives in the budget would be in that direction. So it's going to be more job oriented. It's going to be, I feel, loosening of purse, creating more investment, more capex, more private investment to spur. All those are going to be there in the budget. That's what I'm looking for.
Atul, another area that I want to touch upon is supply side pressure. I mean, I know the industry, and that's across industries, right? There has been cost inflation, which potentially could lead to price hikes, at least in the consumer durable space. How important do you think is rationalization of GST? Because I believe that could sort of offset the price hikes that potentially could be undertaken, right?
So undoubtedly, last 4 to 6 quarters have been extremely challenging. We are in a phase of commodity super cycle. Any commodity, whether it's copper or steel or polymers, they've been on an upside. There have been huge supply chain challenges, particularly in electronics on account of semiconductor and chip deliveries. The freight rates have gone up by almost 8 to 10x. But the positive part is that lately I'm seeing some sign of softening and also stabilization.
Okay.
So I think industry to a very large extent has aligned and is stabilized, and also some cost increase has been passed on. And I feel some more cost increase is yet to be passed on, and that's what's going to happen.
Hmm.
But to, I think largely the situation on supply side, we have kind of aligned with these challenges, and the industry is geared up to meet those challenges. And it's not going to be any more shocks. It's going to be that industry has accepted the situation
Hmm.
and restructured its plans around it. So that kind of a stabilization undoubtedly is a major positive for the industry.
Atul, we talked about this, but I want you to allude a little more on this front. The government has announced extension of the reduced rate of performance security and PLI scheme, where Dixon really is leading from the front here, right? Very obviously has helped India Inc. What do you think needs to be done here? Extension of on this front, could that be an important sort of ask for the industry, for the sector?
So undoubtedly for us, PLI policy initiative is a big initiative for us, and we are participating in various PLI schemes. The Government of India, we're the first domestic company in mobiles to have met the thresholds for both capex and revenue targets set up by the government. We are hopeful and confident of achieving our PLI targets in the IT sector. We are rolling out our investments in white goods. We have tied up with the government, with Bharti Enterprises for telecom products.
Okay.
So they have already had given one extension for the PLI for mobiles, and we've been able to meet the targets now. We
Right.
have requested the government for some kind of extension again on the telecom side because the policy was announced only late November, and the span of time for making the investments is barely 4 months, which is it's not possible for any company to make those investments in such a short span of time. So the
Mhm.
government's response has been positive, and I think in certain sectors, particularly in telecom, we are hopeful that the extension will happen. In white goods side, both in AC control boards, in which we have a joint venture with a Japanese partner, and the backward integration piece of LED lighting, we are well aligned with the government policy. So we're not requesting for any extension there. But on the telecom product side, we have requested for an extension for a year or so.
Right. Atul, India's share of electronic production, I believe, stands at 2%. And in the global exports of electronics, we're a mere 0.2%, right? Any reform schemes that the government could push to give this industry an impetus? I mean, I believe the focus really should be on the value chain. But if you're talking about making make in India a theme to continue and give us a place as a global manufacturing hub, any other reforms that you're betting on from this budget, or maybe even outside the budget, really?
So what is extremely important is three, four initiatives on the policy framework side. One is the low price of land which should be made available.
Okay.
That's extremely important, and the land acquisition process should be much more streamlined.
Yeah.
The second is electronics manufacturing globally, and so is the case in India, is highly labor intensive,
Mm.
and the women participation in the workforce is extremely high.
Mm.
So it is important that women workers to be allowed to work in night shifts, of course. The industry has to ensure that there is adequate security and adequate infrastructure and logistics for the women workers. So that is extremely important, more flexibility on that front and more flexibility on the labor laws. So these are two extremely important initiatives which are required because India is on the cusp of electronics manufacturing, and a lot of growth is going to come in from the global markets. In Dixon's case itself,
Mm.
we will be generating exports of more than 4,000 crores in the forthcoming fiscal on mobile side. So we are requesting the government for these kind of initiatives, which are outside the budget provisions.
Nicely, Atul, and I'm going to ask you this from an industry-wide perspective. You indicated that land acquisition, now that's a space that should be, the process should really be a lot more seamless. How important is making compliance simple, removing redundant laws? Because at the end of the day, if we need to move up the value chain and become the dream that we're talking about, redundant laws need to be getting away with. Investments into India should be made easy. And more importantly, compliance. I mean, we've got to make that easy, right, for India Inc.
Undoubtedly, what you're saying is absolutely spot on. So there have been various announcements by the government in this direction, which are most welcome. But I would be very candid in sharing that on the ground, it should have been much better. What has been stated, I think there's a lot of ground to be covered when it's executed by the field officers of central and the state government. So I think that is what needs to be pushed. And all these compliances, which are a challenge for any high growth industry, should be made much easier. Second, also is extremely important that Indian taxation rules and also the tariffs in indirect taxes and also in direct taxes, they should be made more clear. So please appreciate the value chains when we are competing in the global markets are extremely gruesome. You fight for the last cent. Tariffs rates should be made very, very clear so that both industry and the government are absolutely aligned on that. So these kind of clarities and these kind of initiatives for ease of doing business are most important if India has to make its place in the global value chains of electronics manufacturing.
Right. Thank you, Atul. That was indeed very sort of detailed in terms of what is expected from the budget. Less than 24 hours to go. Lots betting on this one too. Thanks, Atul. Thanks for your time. Have a good week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for this.
Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all related documents carefully before investing.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to never miss an update from ICICI Direct.